Our service today began with a reminder of Jesus' entry into Jerusalem. Those of you who are participating in our Sunday night Lenten study learned that one reason they were so excited was that in front of them was the fulfillment of a long-awaited prophecy. A prophecy that said the Messiah would come down over the Mount of Olives and enter the holy city through the east gate into the Temple Mount, what we know today as the Golden Gate, riding upon a donkey. And that is what Scripture says Jesus had done. As many used to ride through that gate on a donkey, what sets this time apart from all the others is what Jesus has said and done over the last 3 years of his ministry. People were already wondering, was he the Messiah? The one who would free them from life under the heavy hands of Rome? So for Jesus to enter the holy city in this way was a sign that God was being faithful to his people Israel. And the people stood ready for the change they had waited for, only to find that Jesus was not the warrior leader they had expected. No army followed him. And instead of condemning the Roman occupation, Jesus challenges the authority and intent of the Pharisees and Sadducees, the very people Israel looked to for guidance and support in the face of tough times. This, of course, does not make the Jewish leadership very happy. They felt that Jesus not only threatened their grip on power, but also jeopardized the uneasy peace they knew under Roman rule. A peace that was contingent upon their ability to keep conflict between Jewish and Roman faith practices at a minimum. Jesus challenged their authority openly and pointed out their failings. And what is their response? They attempt to discredit him, to show the people that their faith was misplaced in a false Messiah. A Messiah that does not seek to bring freedom and prosperity for the people of Israel, but who would bring more pain and suffering. The long-awaited Messiah was expected to be a conqueror, not a man who suggested that we love those who oppress us. Instead of a call to arms, Jesus, they said, says to give their enemy the cloak off their back, to turn the other cheek in response to the hostility that was invoked upon them. And hearing all this from those that were to be trusted, is it any wonder that these same people who cheered as Jesus entered the holy city became disillusioned by Jesus' perceived lack of initiative in freeing them? And being told by the leaders that on top of all this, he was guilty of blasphemy? How would they not, in less than a week, be calling for his death? How quickly we humans switch from joy to anger when what we expect, what we want, is not what we see or hear unfolding before us. Times haven't changed much in 2,000 years, folks. When we still, at times, act as spoiled children when we don't get our way. When something we expect, something we want, does not unfold before us when and how we expect it. to do. Like the people who lined the streets as Jesus entered Jerusalem, and who later filled the courtyard when Jesus stood before Pilate, when our expectations do not match the reality we perceive before us, we miss the fact that our expectations, maybe even our perceptions, might be wrong. I'm reminded of when I arrived 10 and a half years ago. There was this expectation that I would somehow help us find our way as a parish. That I would better organize our efforts so that we might function more efficiently and in harmony as a congregation, as a community. And that by fixing those people and things that needed fixing, I would help us grow numerically, spiritually. What some did not expect was that in doing so, they might be the ones facing change, being fixed, realizing that the outcomes they expected did not match what was unfolding before them. I include myself in some of that. I thought I had some great expectations and visions too. How I could live into your expectations and visions. But today, we do have a common direction, although not always a common path. We have increased the unity of our efforts to serve those who are members of our community and those in the community around us. And although not everyone is happy with some of the changes that have been slowly happening over the years, we have grown. However, the growth we see and can measure does not always appear to be enough to compensate for the losses we note. So we assume that the growth we cannot see must be doing likewise. And in doing so, we miss how far we've come. Just as the religious leaders in the time of Jesus missed what was happening in their midst. Some have criticized my reliance on a leadership team that is built from the newer members of our church instead of the long-time proven leaders in our community. Some have said I should quit trying different ways to help people connect, but just trust in the Spirit and let things continue as they were. Some have even suggested that my concern for those outside the parish is somehow greater than my concern for those who are already here. I get it. When we look at where we want to be and we look at where we are, it looks like we've got such a long way to go. But if we compare where we are to where we were, one might be surprised at how much we have done together. And I'm not just talking about the tangible things, like the parking lot, or our sound system, or new windows and doors, new flooring, new paint, an emerging point of connection we're going to call the Spirit Hub. I'm also talking about the intangible things, like over 20 youth who over the last 10 years has grown up and gone off on their own with a sense of who they are and what they believe. Members whose relationship with God and one another has deepened. Lives lifted up in the face of tragedy and tribulation. Joys found in our service to those in need. Peace experienced in the midst of the chaos that surrounds us. The point is, When we look for something in only one way, we miss it happening in so many other ways around us. While most of Israel looked for a Messiah who would fulfill their expectations, and for a brief moment, feeling they had found him, they missed the Messiah in their midst. The Messiah who would bring freedom, not from Rome, but from the force that truly oppressed them, themselves. See, it's always easier to find fault in others than it is in ourselves. And that's one reason why, in the reading of the Passion narrative, we speak with the voice of the people. Those who cried out for the death of Jesus. As a reminder that despite how highly we think of ourselves, how much better we think we are than others who are not like us, who don't think like us, who don't look like us, who have a different view of life than us. We can and we often do act as spoiled children who do not get what they want in the time or way we want. It would be so easy, especially in this time of year, and probably preferred by many of you, if we just skipped the Passion narrative altogether and went from the triumphal entry into Jerusalem to God's power and getting rid of death and the resurrection. But the truth is, we need to be reminded that while the good news of the resurrection is something we are to celebrate, it did not come without cost. A cost that had to be paid because of our own childishness. Good news is that out of death comes new life. Out of change comes new hope. Not because we deserve it, not because we've earned it, and certainly not because we feel it is our right, but simply because we are loved. In fact, we are loved so much that while we were still sinners, while we were unworthy of grace, Jesus came among us to show us the way. And then he died on the cross for us, that we might not die unto ourselves.